shouldn't be this way. Well, what if you let go of how things should be and you just let things be as they are? And maybe you'll find peace with that. Can you surrender to that? Can you let go of control? Have you ever been driving down the road and just kind of in one of those zones where you're just kind of checked out, but like in a good way, and you're reflecting and you're thinking about life and you're looking at where you are now financially, career-wise, friendships, relationships, health, all of it. And you're kind of just surprised at where you're at because you always thought you would be a little bit further along. Like you had this idea that by the time I'm 30, I'm going to have this much money and I'm going to have my first house, I'm going to be married, and I'm going to have kids, and I'm going to have it all figured out. Or by the time I'm 25, like this is what I'm going to have, or 40 or 45 or whatever it is. And then when you're driving along and you kind of just like are taking a hard look at your life, you're like, wow, I feel like I should be so much further along than where I am. And you start to question, like, am I on the wrong path? Did I mess up? Did I somehow like miss the big sign or the big message? And now I'm just inevitably gonna feel behind all the time. This happens all the time. And if you've ever struggled with this feeling of feeling like you are behind or you should be further along than you are in life, or like you're failing in some way, then you've come to the right place, because that is what we are going to talk about today in this Phoenix Rising podcast episode is, are you on the right path? And should you be further along than you are? So life isn't a linear thing. Life is not like, unfortunately, in entrepreneurship, there was always, I can't remember who it is, but there was always this like graph somebody drew of what we think success looks like. And it's a straight line. And then there was another graph of the reality of what success looks like, which is like up, down, circled, backwards, forwards. And that's really what life is all about. But that's not what our society teaches. Our society is under the illusion, the belief that life is linear and that you make one decision. And each time you make a decision, you stay on this straight and narrow path, and there's never any bumps or ups and downs. And as long as you continue to follow this path and play by these rules, then inevitably you'll be successful, you'll be happy, you'll have perfect health, and you'll have all the relationships. And the reality of that is that's total bullshit. And that is not the way life works. The reason it's so important to say this is because if we talked about this more, about the reality of life and how it actually works, and not this like brainwashed idea, I think we would have more people that are able to let go and surrender a little bit and just kind of trust their own path instead of constantly comparing their path to somebody else's path, because it's like, well, that's where I should be. That's what you're supposed to do at 25, 30, 35, 40, whatever. Well, this is how much money I should have, this is where my career should be. And I've said this before, you can live multiple lives in one lifetime. And I actually think the most experienced life is one where you're reinventing yourself and you're doing new things and you're trying new things. And I don't mean necessarily that you have to like totally abandon everything and everyone in a previous version of yourself. But I do think that the more room and flexibility and grace and compassion you can give yourself to allow space for you to grow and evolve and change your mind and take different paths and start over, the more you do that, the less suffering and the more joy and peace that you can find in life. And it's always so interesting because like we understand this from a physiological perspective. We understand that physically our bodies evolve and change. Physically, like when we turn 20, it's not the same body when we had when we were 10, and when we turn 30, and then when we're 60 and 80. But we don't really give the same respect and permission when it comes to our brains and our hearts and our souls and the things we like and the people we like and the things we want to do. We put ourselves in these boxes because that is what society has trained us to do is, okay, you go to college. After you go to college, you pick a career path, and then that's it. Like, make sure you make the right choice, because that career path is what you're going to do for the rest of your life, even though you're too young to know anything about life to figure it out. And then you're going to make a choice on who you're going to spend the rest of your life with, and make sure it's the right choice too, because you don't want to end up with the wrong person And it's just like this constant stress and this constant feeling of, I'm not doing things right. My life doesn't look the way that it's supposed to. Those are my air quotes, that it's supposed to look. I'm failing, I'm falling behind, and I must be doing something wrong because I'm not where I should be. So part of this struggle is we have our own internal timelines and plans and images of how we think things should be. And we end up comparing this to the reality, and there's resistance, there's conflict, because the image we have internally isn't matching up with what's actually happening externally. And like, I even remember a personal story is I remember when I was, I don't know, 25, 26, 27, highly ambitious, highly motivated, just like such a like huge dreamer, big thinker, all these things. 25, 26, I'm like, okay, by the time I'm 30, I'm going to have made my first $1 million. I'm going to have owned multiple homes. I'm going to own all these properties. I'm going to be married to the love of my life. I'm going to have the best friends in the world who are going to stick around forever. And I'm going to have it all figured out. And the reality is 30 rolled around, and with 30, Saturn's return rolled around, which if you don't know what that is, check out Saturn's return. Saturn's return rolled around and quite the opposite happened. And everything that I thought I would have by the time I was 30 completely got shattered and disrupted. Like, I lost friendships, lost relationships, lost money, lost homes. Like, it was a total shit show. And it always like we know this and I know this, but like, even when it happens, you're like, no, not that. Like, I learned that, like, that's not going to happen again. Like, this time, like, I've got it figured out a little bit more. And the struggle is when this starts to happen and life starts to dissolve, because you are growing, you are evolving. So everything that fits the old version of you has to let go and be disrupted in order for you to grow and evolve. But when it does, we resist it. We deny it. We hold on to it. We refuse to accept it. And we fight it. We fight it all the time because it's like, no, I should be here. I'm supposed to have this. I'm supposed to have this much money. I'm supposed to have this relationship. This friendship was never supposed to end. This relationship was supposed to be the one. All of these ideas. And when we do this, it creates inner conflict, because now we no longer are surrendering to the flow of life. Now we are resisting life and rejecting the reality of what it is, because we are holding on to this internal vision and idea of how we think should be, how we think things should be, instead of how they actually are. The other thing too is we really don't have as much control as we think we do. And like, I've been thinking about this a lot recently, because there's the idea, there's like a fine line. There's a fine line between like being a total just like surrender, take no control of your life whatsoever and go with the flow, which I kind of struggle with that, because it's like, well, yeah, but there's also a level of like action and participation. You have to participate in life. You can't just sit around and expect like somebody's just going to knock on your door and find you randomly. So there's like that extreme. Then there's the other extreme of believing that you have full control over everything, and all you got to do is like think about it and boom, like you have it. And it's like, well, no, it's not really that either. It's kind of like an ebb and flow. You have like this dance with the universe where you have your goals, but then you also have to surrender that sometimes things may or may not line up. And the more I think about this, like the more peace I find, because so like another story. So last year, you know, I had all these things set in place. I had all these plans. I had all these financial plans. I had all these business plans. I had contracts, like legally binding contracts, all set up. And like, I was doing this whole like financial plan for myself in this spreadsheet. And like, all right, like here's how much is going to come in. This is how much I'm going to invest. Here's how much I'm going to save. Here's what's going to go to bills and expenses. And I had all this stuff set, and I'm like meditating every day, and I'm practicing gratitude, and I'm doing all the right things. And then one of those contracts, the other people in the contract completely disappeared, just totally disappeared, kind of like you get ghosted in dating apps, like totally just ghosted me, disappeared, and now I'm out like thousands of dollars. And I'm like, huh, all right. And I spent a little bit of time reflecting of like, well, that's not how things, again, air quotes, should have gone. It was supposed to be, we had an agreement and a contract, and this is what happened. So I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm going to surrender. I'm going to let this go. I'm just going to like keep my vibration high, and I'm going to keep focusing on like what I want to do and let all of it go. So then I have another contract. Same exact thing happens. Same exact thing. Got a contract. People owing me thousands of dollars, and they just disappear. I text, I call, I email, certified letters, everything. They just disappear. We're talking thousands of dollars. Okay. So in my mind, going back to what this is all about, of how things should be, and I'm not where I should be at this time, or my money's not where I want it to be. There's two games you can play. There's going to be one that serves you, and there's going to be one that keeps you stuck and resisting life. You can play the game of when things like this happen. And what I could have done is I could have fought it. And I mean, I did for a little bit. Like, I definitely put forth the effort in trying to resolve the situation, get the money, figure things out. There's only so long you can do that, though, before you have to just accept the reality of a situation. There's only so long you can fight for something before you have to accept the truth, before you have to accept what is right in front of your face. And the two games you can play when you find yourself in a situation where you're like, this wasn't supposed to happen. This isn't how life was supposed to go. I had a plan. Life was supposed to be this. I should be this, or I should have had this, or whatever it might be. You can play the game of holding on to the image of what you feel like life should look like. And you can be upset, and you can be angry, you can be frustrated of how things should be. And you can resist it, and you can pull, and you can chase, and you can try and bring whatever it is back into your life. I could have like chased all these people and tried to bring this money back into my life. And all it would have done is created more anger, more frustration. It would have drained me. It would have exhausted me. It would have frustrated me. I could have also sat here in this place just like beating myself up of like, what did I do wrong? This is my fault. Maybe I didn't read the contract through enough. Maybe I didn't do this. What's my big lesson? Maybe my vibration is off. Maybe I wasn't meditating enough. Maybe my thoughts were not vibrating at that level. And it's like, God, no. You can take that path, or you can take the path that will move you forward. And you'll be like, okay, this is not at all what I had planned. This is not at all what I wanted. And this kind of screws me over. So you're accepting the truth of where you are, but I can't do anything about it. I have no control over other people. All I can do is sit here in the present moment and move forward. Okay, so can't do anything about that money. Sucks. Spend a day or two being pissed off and angry about it. But then the thing about life, if you choose to live in each present moment, you're always going to be moving in the flow of things. When you are wasting the present moment trying to change what's happened, or trying to change the past, or trying to reverse things, you're always going to be stuck. You're going to be stuck, and then you are missing out on life that is happening in each present moment. And 99% of our frustration and our suffering comes from thinking things should be different than what they actually are. It's not that there's necessarily anything wrong. It's the problem of we have the image in our mind of how things should be, and that's not what they actually are. And that's where our suffering comes from. Shouldn't be this way. Well, what if you let go of how things should be and you just let things be as they are? And maybe you'll find peace with that. Can you surrender to that? Can you let go of control? And even I was talking to somebody about this the other day about relationships. I had gotten a message about somebody asking for help in regards to like flashbacks and like always reverting back to the past and like regrets and like things that you wish you could change. And it's kind of the same thing. Is it's like, life is actually really generous to us. The universe actually is always trying to help us. The problem is we're never actually truly present to life and what it is offering us in each moment. And I've had this happen not just like in situations like what I described with like these business situations where I'm like screwed and lost thousands of dollars. And now I'm like, it's funny because the old me, like 10 years ago, the 24, 25, 26-year-old me who's like brand new to business and all these things, that version of me, had this would have happened when I'm like figuring out like being an adult and how people are and all this stuff, would have been an emotional wreck for a very long time because I would have been crying. I would have been like, why would somebody do this to me? I would have taken it so personally as if it was my fault. This happens to me all to writing this whole story. This always happens to me. People just leave me. People just ghost me. I just get cheated and abandoned all the time. And like, now what do I do? And I would have exhausted myself chasing the situation, chasing these people, all this stuff. And it would have done nothing but kept me stuck in the exact same place and writing a story and a belief system about myself that didn't serve me. That's what would have happened 10 years ago. Now, when it happens, I kind of just step back. I don't react. And I talk about that a lot. Like when life happens, you have the option of you can either react to life or you can step back, observe, and then you can be proactive in how you want to participate moving forward. If you're reactive, you're always a victim to your circumstances. You're always a victim to life. Instead, if you understand life and how it works in the universe, and some things are in your control and some things are not, but that the only thing you control is yourself and your reaction to it. If you understand that, when situations happen that are outside of your control, you can step back, kind of take a few deep breaths, maybe go do some heavy lifts, work out all that energy, come back to your center, ground yourself and be like, all right, this is a shitty situation. Like, let's just be honest. Let's have a real conversation. Let's not pretend like there's some sort of positive in this, because sometimes it's a shitty situation. What can I do about this? How can I move forward? What are my options? All right, my options are I can chase them, I can sue them, I can do a whole lawsuit, I can go after them, I can do all these things, all right? This is A. B, what else can I do? Well, I can trust that the universe loves me. I can do the best I can to try and resolve this and do everything I can, and I will, but also I can surrender knowing that this has nothing to do with me. And anybody who does something like this has bigger skeletons in their closets than I want to be involved with. And I trust that if I move forward, the universe is going to just resolve things on its own. That's the thing, is you got to keep in mind, things are always in perfect order. If you look at nature, nature is never without anything. It's always working in perfect order, in seasons and flows. When fall rolls around, we then have winter. We got summer, but like when winter is over, it's not like winter is like fighting to hang on and be like, no, it will not be spring. It's supposed to be winter because winter is the best. It's like, okay, no, that season's done. Like, let me just move with life. Like, nature is always in flow. And if situations happen and you're struggling, feeling like you got a temper tantrum because it's like, no, this isn't what was supposed to happen. This wasn't my plan. Like, I had a plan. Well, nobody really cares because life is just sometimes a whole like wild card of like, well, this is what you get. Like, yeah, you had a plan and you get, okay. So I was joking. I was cracking up. I was joking to somebody about this. I was like, you know what the universe is kind of like? It's kind of like you just get to like show up to the town hall meeting and give your 2 cents. And it's like, hey, thank you so much for showing up. Like, we appreciate you so much. Yep. The suggestion box is right over there. You go ahead. Yeah, no, he reads all of them. Does he do anything about anything that you read? No. Or about anything that you put in there? No, probably not, because he's got like his own initiatives and his own plan, but we do appreciate you participating and give your feedback. Like, we're going to take that seriously. And then meanwhile, you're like sitting in this town hall meeting and you're like, did anybody else feel like we're just here to be the audience, but like really it's just like a game that we're not able to really play. We're just like the game or the players in the game. That's how the universe is to me, of like, hey, okay, so here's my plan. So I'm going to be 30. By the time I'm 30, here's the menu. Please take out a pen and paper, like write down my order because I don't want you to forget what I say I don't want. You write the whole plan out, the universe is taking your order and is like, that's really great. Thank you so much. We'll take it back to the kitchen. We don't have any of those ingredients. So instead, here you go. This is what you get. And then we get mad because I'm like, why did you give me an ice cream cone? I said I wanted a filet medium with a side of Brussels sprouts. Like, what is this? That's life. Like, it's not funny, but it is funny almost because when you learn to sit back and not react, it's not that you become detached. You just understand the game. And all it is you really don't have that much control. This brings me to, so I've been learning a lot about astrology. First off, I don't subscribe to any specific belief system or religion. I believe there is truth in a lot of different things. And I just like exploring different beliefs and ways of viewing the world and taking what I think actually makes sense. And that is it. So I'll preface it with that. But so I've been looking into astrology a lot more because there is a science behind it. And even recently, somebody was asking for advice about getting over an ex. And they're like, God, man, I have been like stuck on my ex for years. Like, I cannot move past, like, I've done Reiki, I've done meditations, I've done like sage, I've gone to therapy, I've done all these things. And like, that relationship wasn't supposed to end. And they were struggling with this exact thing of like, this wasn't supposed to happen. Like, we had a plan. We were supposed to be together forever. And then we were going to build this life. And I was like, yeah, but one, people feel that way all the time. People who get married, they have a plan. They're going to be married forever and they're going to build a life together. And then that whole plan goes down the drain. And then it's like, well, crap, like, now what? Now what do we do? Like, everything we planned to have basically didn't work out. And so I was telling him, I was like, have you ever thought about the fact that like maybe it's just nothing to do with you and it's not in your control and it's literally just like a timing thing? And I was saying, I was like, I've been studying astrology a lot more and just like learning more about it and like the science and like planets and all that stuff. And a lot of it makes a ton of sense. Like, I know some of it doesn't. And there's like some things that I'm like, yeah, that's like garbage. But like the science behind it, if you actually learn about like the science and not just like some stupid column on a website, it actually makes a lot of sense. And I was saying, I was like, maybe this is literally, you've just got like something in one of your relationship houses and you don't have to figure anything else out. Once this like moves out, everything's just going to clear up. You don't have to try so hard. And I think that is the lesson when we're struggling and we're like, oh my God, I was supposed to have so much more money by the time I'm 40 and I'm supposed to like have the relationship stuff figured out and the money figured out. And I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, but I am grown up and I don't know what my career path is. I hate my job, but I don't really know my passion. Like, when you're struggling with that, it's like, maybe the best approach is just letting go of what you think life is supposed to look like and just kind of hop on board with the fact that like life is always moving and it's always doing its own thing, whether you have a plan or not. So what I would love to encourage you to do, if there's any area of your life that you're like, man, I'm just beating myself up because I can't get over this ex and our relationship was supposed to be this and it turned out to just fall apart, or man, I was supposed to have so much more money, but now I'm like struggling paycheck to paycheck, or like, man, I was supposed to have the career stuff figured out and now it's not figured out. Whatever it is, if you find yourself in that place and you're comparing yourself to other people's paths and like, like they look like they figured it out, I should have figured it out. What I would encourage and challenge you to do is practice, just even if you can only do it for a day or for a few minutes, letting go of that plan and being present to life as it is. Because you holding on to that plan is you living in the past and not in the present. And each time you do that, you are missing out on the gifts that the present moment has. And sometimes I understand when you're going through a really hard time. Trust me, I do understand. Like, sometimes life is really low and it's really hard. But sometimes if you can just let go of the way you think things should be for just a minute, and like that present moment is literally just you taking a few breaths, I promise you, you're going to feel like even like the slightest sense of peace, because there is a deeper part of you when your brain stops talking and your brain and your ego are all trying to like figure it out and make sense and beat you up and tell you this is wrong, tell you like how you're failing. And that's all your brain. When you can just like get present, take a few deep breaths, there's a deep part of you that knows everything's okay. You are exactly where you are supposed to be. And if you weren't supposed to be here, you wouldn't be here. Life would find a way to move you along. If you were meant to be with that person, you would be with that person. If you were meant to have that job, you would have that job. And I'm not saying don't take action and going after the things that you want, but really the things that are truly yours in life, whether it's an opportunity, it's a career, it's a friend, it's a partner, the things that are really yours, you don't have to grasp and cling to. And everybody, this is why going back to the whole astrology thing, like even age-wise, when you start to learn about some of it, it's so interesting because it's like, even age-wise, like I always struggled with wanting to be way more successful in my early 20s, but then like you start to learn some of this stuff and you're like, oh, actually, like this makes more sense. Like some people are set up for like big success early on in their 20s, and then the rest of their life is all about like finding the meaning of life. And then other people find the meaning of life, and then they have more success like in their 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s. Like it's really just accepting that nobody's life looks the same and giving yourself permission to reinvent your life every single day. Maybe you need to reinvent yourself. Maybe you have outgrown things. Maybe what you think life should look like is really just distracting you because you're not taking action in the life that you have now. I find a lot of times when people are ruminating or they're stuck in the past or they're stuck in the thought process of how things should be, what the brain is doing is it is doing that because it keeps you from being present and taking action and making the changes you need to make now in order to move your life forward. When we're stuck thinking in the past, all that does is it puts us in limbo and it keeps us from like showing up to the present of like, okay, if you want that, what do you need to do right now to move forward? But if you're just sitting around thinking about how things should be, you're not where you are, like this isn't how it was supposed to be, that is your brain distracting you from being present and taking action and creating life in each present moment. And it's really just doing the best you can. Like I said in the beginning, it's an ebb and flow of like you taking action, but also like throwing the ball back to the universe of like, hey, now it's in your court. What's next? Is this the path or should I take a different path? And then it throws it back and it's like, hey, here's a stroke of luck and an opportunity. It's up to you. Are you going to run with this or are you going to let this go? And you throw it back and you're like, I'm going to run with it. Now what do I do with it? Like it's co-creating. Life is about co-creating. Every time an opportunity shows up to lead you to a different path, you have the choice whether or not to participate, but you have to be present to life as it is in order to even recognize how life is showing up for you. So I wanted to talk about this because so many people are struggling and staying stuck, not letting go of the idea of how things should be and ruminating and thinking about like where they're supposed to be, how they're failing. And all it's doing is it is taking away from what life is offering you in this present moment. Maybe something didn't work out. Maybe you thought you were going to be a famous, I don't know, singer or famous architect or a famous whatever. And like the cards just didn't fall for that. Okay. Like accept the truth. Don't try and like hang on to something that just isn't going to happen. So now what? That didn't work out. Now what do you want to do? Now who do you want to be? What's another dream you can have? All right. So like that marriage totally fell apart. Not what you planned, obviously, but it fell apart maybe because you outgrew that relationship. And now you're somebody different. And now you need to move in a new direction. So deal with it and do what you need to do to keep growing. Maybe you thought you'd have more money. Okay. Well, you don't. I'm sorry. Accept that. But now what can you do in the present moment in order to hit those goals? That's really what life is about. So I hope you found this helpful. I hope that you just take some time today to just stop Breathe. Be present. Just look at the sky, look at the water, look at the grass, look at the birds. That is life. Life is happening right now. This is it, you guys. We're in it. There's nowhere we're getting to. There's not some magical destination in your life that you're going to show up and you're going to be like, yes, finally, this is where I was trying to get to. This is what I wanted to figure out. That's not going to happen because you're going to get there and then there's going to be somewhere else you want to be and somewhere else you want to be and something else you should be doing. This is it. Your life is right now. You listening to this or watching this, this is your life. So start showing up to it. All right. Thank you for watching. If you loved this, be sure to subscribe. And yeah, I appreciate everything that you are. And I appreciate you showing up every time I do one of these episodes. And if you love this, leave me a comment and let me know. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.